با درود و احترام خدمت شنوندگان و بینندگان عزیز، امروز در رابطه با صحبت‌های شاهزاده رضا پهلوی صحبت می‌کنیم که یک سخنرانی، یک مصاحبه ای رو در یکی از تلویزیون‌های انگلیسی زبان انجام داده پخش می‌کنم. بعد از صحبتی که دیروز خامنه ای انجام داد و گفت که ما غنیسازی اورانیوم خودمون رو ادامه میدیم و امریکا هم غلط کرده، حرف زیادی زده که گفته ایران نمیتونه غنیسازی اورانیوم داشته باشه. در اصل جواب منفی داد و به قول معروف با این کارش گور خودش رو کند و ملتی رو شاد کرد. یعنی تکلیف خامنه ای رو مردم مشخص خواهند کرد، نه امریکا و اسرائیل، و مردم اون رو به سزای اعمالش خواهند رساند. در عمل خواهید دید در آینده بسیار نزدیک. و اما شاهزاده که این روزها بسیار فعال، مرتب سخنرانی میکنه، خصوصا در شبکه‌های خارجی، رسانه‌های خارجی، به خاطر اینکه کشورهای دیگر بدانند حرف مردم ایران چیست. حرف مردم ایران نخواستن این رژیم است. گرچه فهمیدند، حتی ترامپ هم توی سخنرانیش در عربستان اینو گفت، این رژیم دزد و جنایتکار و خیانتکار و تروریسته. اما صحبت‌های شاهزاده به عنوان یک کسی که فرزند شاه بوده، ذی‌نفع در اینکه بتواند دفاع کنه از مردمش، و امروز در یک مصاحبه ای رو که ایشان انجام داده در شبکه خبری فاکس بیزینس و صحبت‌های خوبی کرده. بسیار این صحبت‌ها خوبه، این مصاحبه‌ها تأثیر بسیاری داره، به خصوص برای خارجی‌ها. و قسمت نخست پروژه شکوفایی ایران هم از شبکه تلویزیونی من و تو از طریق ماهواره که در ایران دیده میشه پخش شد و اون رو هم مردم داخل ایران دیدند. حالا امروز به این صحبت‌ها که شاهزاده رضا پهلوی که در صدد رهبری دوره گذار هست و کمک کنه تا این رژیم ساقط بشه و مردم با رفراندوم حکومت بعدی رو انتخاب کنند، بسیار حرکت خوبی است. باید پشتیبانی بشه تا حداقل فعلا این رژیم خونخوار ساقط بشه و مردم آزاد بشن. مراحل بعد که باز مردم 100 میلیون ایرانی خارجی و داخلی، یعنی کسایی که خارج هستن میآیند داخل و اونهایی هم که در داخل ایران هستند، تکلیف حکومت و رهبر آینده رو مشخص خواهند کرد. صحبتی است که شاهزاده بارها اعلام کرده. حالا امروز هم صحبت‌هایی کرده، بد نیست، گوش بدید و بعد لطفاً شیر کنید تا دیگران هم بدانند که رسیدن به آزادی نزدیک است. در ضمن این سخنرانی شاهزاده به فارسی، زیرنویس فارسی در از ترجمه شده که شما میتونید ببینید.
Joining me right now is the exiled Crown Prince of Iran, the former, His Royal Highness Reza Pahlavi is here in studio. Your Royal Highness, great to have you.
Maria, thank you for having me again.
Thank you so much for being here. Give us your take on that, what you just heard, that the fighting with the Houthis is over. Should we believe that? And what about a potential deal with this current regime in Iran?
The past 40 years has demonstrated to everyone that has followed Iran that the demeanor and the pattern of behavior of this regime has remained consistent only in one way, and that is to continue fomenting regional instability and conflict as a means of its own survival by financing its proxies and utilizing them as an instrument of pressure or intimidation across the world. The Houthis are just one example of that. The majority of the funding came from Iran, the training, the weapons. So, it's not that they say we are going to quit the fight. Who is to say they're not going to start it again once Iran will start funding them again? Because this is what the regime is most likely to do. Khamenei said that this is a temporary setback, and he was forced into accepting the climate of indirect talks only to buy some time to the regime. They have done that before. So nothing leads us to believe that this time they have a complete change of behavior or attitude. And that's something that we should not fall into the trappings that this regime has set, not just to the current administration, but to previous administrations, and has always taken advantage of that in order to prolong its own survival.
I think President Trump is aware of the sentiments that you're making this morning, Reza, and I just wonder if, in fact, there is a different tact that this administration should be taking at this point. I mean, President Trump told me exclusively 2 months ago he sent a letter to Khamenei, and then they tried to mock that letter. What is the right approach?
Look, the president was absolutely correct during his first administration. The campaign of maximum pressure paid positive dividends. It forced Iran to do a retreat, cut a lot of the revenue that the regime would have had access to. Unfortunately, it was reversed under the Biden administration. The regime had in excess of $200 billion it should not have had, which was, of course, spent on not the people of Iran who are starving on the streets, but by reinforcing their proxies. October 7th was not just a coincidence. It's a result of that continued funding of the regime of its terror network. That is the component that President Trump, during his first administration, understood. Now, and as I said many times before, including on your show, maximum pressure in itself is not sufficient to remedy the problem. There has to be parallel to maximum pressure, a policy of maximum support to the Iranian people. Now, why is this important? Vice President Vance is talking about reintegration. The Iranian people are your true partner in peace. They are the alternative to a warmongering regime that has called death to Israel and death to America since its inception. It's not just a slogan, it's an actual belief. The IRGC, as a stated mission, has to export this revolutionary ideology across the world. They are not there to sue for peace and coexistence with their neighbors or beyond. That's what is missing in the ultimate understanding of foreign governments looking into Iran as to what is the alternative here. Of course, Iranians want to be integrated in free societies because they share the same values of the free world, not this regime. So negotiating with a regime that in its own DNA is simply incompatible with such integration is a waste of time. And the regime is gaining by dragging the feet to prolong its existence, hoping that maybe they will survive this administration, only to come back again and continue its policy of radicalism and violence. So when you look at Iran, I think this administration and many other governments should look beyond the regime itself and look at what's on the streets of Iran. What's the demand of the people? The people who chant, they lie to us, they say America is the enemy. Our enemy is right here in Iran. That's what the people are saying.
Yeah.
So that's the big distinction that needs to be understood at every phase of any discussions going on.
It's a very important point, and that is why the people of Iran keep chanting for you to return. I mean, I want to get your take on regional partners and potential help from the region. President Trump is set to visit the Middle East next week. He told reporters yesterday he's yet to make a decision about potentially renaming the Persian Gulf. Watch this.
Referring to the Persian Gulf as the Arabian Gulf, are you going to make that announcement on your
They're going to ask me about that when I get there, and I'll have to make a decision.
So you haven't made a decision yet?
I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. I don't know if feelings are going to be hurt. Why have a case right over here? It's called Gulf of America, and I guess a lot of people get ideas from us. But the Gulf of America was something I thought should have been named a long time ago. I'm going to be given a briefing on that. It was just done, and I'll make a decision.
Your Highness, the Gulf of Persia sits between Iran and Saudi Arabia. It is strategically important for both nations. You wrote about this and tweeted about this yesterday. Tell us your thoughts.
Well, I mean, there's a video of President Trump, I think about 35 years ago, clearly referring to the Persian Gulf as the Persian Gulf, because he, like many other people around the planet for generations going to school learn this body of water to be called the Persian Gulf. Has been the name for millennia, and that's the way it's going to be in the future. You cannot change a name strictly with a stroke of a pen. That's just a reality, and that's the end of the conversation. I don't think there's any argument to be made about how to call that body of water.
Well, the Iranian people took to the streets again. They are protesting this regime. They want their freedom. They know who their customer is in the Iranian regime. What do you want to say to the Iranian people this morning?
I think the Iranian people have a legitimate expectation that the free world that they look towards for help and support, the same world that promises values of freedom, of democracy, of human rights, of fighting discrimination of any form, represent an alternative to a regime that from the very beginning has repressed its own people, had murdered its own citizens. And it is natural for them to expect this from the free world. They get dissuaded, I mean, not dissuaded is the wrong word, but they get depressed over the fact that when they're chanting so courageously, and we saw that at least in the last couple of years since the Mahsa revolution.
Yes, of course.
That despite the repression, they're still there fighting without any help whatsoever.
Yeah.
Imagine what they could do if they had such support. Now, there's one element that I think should be part of the calculation. It's not just, as I said earlier, the concept of maximum pressure and support that would benefit the Iranian people in their fight for liberation. But understand that in any change of these kind of regimes, to put an end to this kind of totalitarian regime, we saw it in the Soviet Union, we saw it in South Africa and other systems, there's also a question of defections from the regime towards the people. And people will defect more likely from the regime towards the people if they took that pressure seriously and saw that this is an opportunity now to abandon ship. That's also very important. So I can understand diplomacy, but up to a point. And what I always said is that often we have heard diplomats in Europe and here say, if option A, which is diplomacy, fails, let's go straight to now, let's strike them.
Yeah.
What happens to the people as an alternative here? Why not give them a chance before you have to resort to more drastic measures? And that opportunity is right in front of our eyes. It's the people that represent the alternative and the distinction between the people of Iran and the regime.
Well, let's not forget, Iran has its own propaganda campaigns throughout the world, including America. The senator from Texas, Ted Cruz, calling on his alma mater, Princeton University, to dismiss a former high-ranking Iranian regime official who is currently still at the school as a Middle East security and nuclear policy specialist. Senator Cruz responded directly to him on X. He writes this: I try not to be in the room with people linked to Iranian terrorists who have murdered dozens of dissidents. Your books are unreadable, and the only debate you should be having is with DHS agents, Homeland Security, at the end of which you should be deported. Your reaction?
Look, Maria, in the early 80s, and I was witness to it, when many Iranian dissidents were assassinated on European soil as a result of some negligence and maybe a laissez-faire attitude that has now moved all the way and infiltrated the Western Hemisphere, including the United States. You know, when you think of a terrorist regime and its militia, you shouldn't only assume that they are in military gear with machine guns or hand grenades. Many of them are civilians, infiltrating and penetrating think tanks, lobbyists, influencers, even universities. We shouldn't be surprised. Last week, they arrested 8 people attempting an attack on the Israeli embassy in England. This is part, again, of the pattern of behavior of this regime. As they're sitting down negotiating a deal with the American side, their elements are still at work.
Unbelievable. Quote, unquote, negotiating, right? Reza, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you again.
And for your leadership.
Thank you so much.
We appreciate you joining us. Reza Pahlavi. We'll be right back. You're watching Mornings with Maria, live on Fox Business.
بسیار صحبت‌های خوبی بود و دیگر حرکتی که شاهزاده انجام داده، پروژه شکوفایی ایران، نقشه راه بازسازی ایران پس از پایان رژیم اسلامی است و هدف بازگرداندن توسعه و رفاه به گوشه گوشه ایران عزیز است. این پروژه که به دست متخصصان میهن پرست ایرانی طراحی شده، تعهدی است به ملت ایران. این یک فراخوان ملی است از همه متخصصان، کارآفرینان، سرمایه‌گذاران و دلسوزان ایران دعوت میشه تا هم بپیوندند و با هم در ساخت آینده نوع ایران شریک باشند و همکاری کنند. حرکت خوبی داره انجام میشه و اشاره میکنم به پیام فردوسی که همیشه در سرودهای خودش ایستادگی، مبارزه قهرمانانه و پاسداری از هویت ملی برای رهایی ایران صحبت کرده. شما در تمام سرودهای فردوسی این پیام رو خواهید دید و ما اکنون باید برای رهایی کشورمون از دست جمهوری اسلامی که یک اهریمن هست، یک دشخیم هست، ایران را آزاد کنیم. ضحاک زمان خامنه است، ضحاکی که در شاهنامه فردوسی هست و مغز جوانان رو برای تغذیه مارهای دوش ضحاک خرج میشه و کشته میشن تا مارها بتوانند غذا بخورند. دقیقاً مسئله خامنه‌ای و رژیم جمهوری اسلامی است. این نماد رو در گذشته دور فردوسی آورده. ضحاک سمبل دشمنان ایران هست، دشمن خونخوار، دشمن سنگدل و بیرحم. از این جهت ضحاک زمان یعنی خامنه‌ای و مردم هم این رو میدانند. ملت ایران با هوشیاری همه تلاش‌های ضحاک زمان خامنه‌ای رو ناکام گذاشته و با بازخوانی شاهنامه و بزرگداشتی که برای فردوسی میگیرند از گذشته و هویت خودشون پاسداری میکنند. امروز بیش از هر زمان دیگر صدای فردوسی پژواک اراده ملت ایران برای بازپسگیری و بازسازی ایران آزاد، آباد و شکوفاست که باید از دست ضحاک زمان گرفته بشه و این امر داره صورت میگیره و داریم به روزهای شادی مردم نزدیک میشیم. حالا شما عزیزان هم در مورد صحبت‌های شاهزاده، در مورد صحبت‌هایی که شد اگر نظر و یا پیشنهادی دارید لطفاً بنویسید. بدرود تا برنامه دیگر.